AI is a double-edged sword in cybersecurity, actually. It's a two-edged sword. It has both faces. We can use it to protect the system, and you can also use it to harm the system. As our world goes digital, we're relying more. Look at the CrowdStrike case. A lot of systems just went down, and there were no alternatives, no plan B of what to do. Flights could not go and things like that. That is how our world is now. There's an organization now with $50. You take this recorded message that we're doing now, and then you take it to them, and they will mimic me, my voice, the way I speak, and they can reproduce it with my still pictures. That is going on now. That's AI.
Duronke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time because cybersecurity is a field that has intrigued me, I would say, in the last year or 2 years. Because I don't know, I've just been seeing increasingly numbers of people getting hacked that I know, bigger influencers getting hacked, people that seem untouchable, right? Um, are being compromised by this. And it's kind of this funny thing because you think like who's causing all of this chaos, right? And it's exhausting resources for people, for governments. And you are somebody who does this for a living and is around this day in and day out. And so I'm so excited to pick your brain. You've shared, some awesome stories with me offline that I'm excited to bring to other people. But for those of us who aren't familiar with cybersecurity, can you give us a quick background on how you got into it and what your what your relationship is with it nowadays?
Thank you. Thank you. I love the way, first of all, I'm going to go back on your statement. I love the way you summarized it that people that seem untouchable are now getting hurt. And you're absolutely right. Now, no one is untouchable. And you know what makes it even more difficult? With the advent of AI, which is all over everywhere, it has helped the hackers to perfect their art. In the past,
Right.
you see all those badly written emails. Guess what? There are no badly written emails anymore. They're
Yeah.
properly crafted such that people are losing money. I don't want to digress, but there's a story recently. There was a guy, there was an organization. This is real. When I'm done, go on CNN and check it out. There was someone that had a meeting with his team members. He was absolutely positive that they were, and it was his CFO and asked him to transfer money. And I'm saying over a Teams meeting, just like we're looking at each other. And guess what? They were all fakes.
Wow. That's
So
impressive in some ways.
it is impressive. Even for me, I knew that that was impressive. So that's cybersecurity for in a nutshell. That is what, how can we reduce this? And I will go to my background. How did I start? Maybe by accident. My background had always been in IT. I read computer sciences in those days. I'll just leave it at that, right? We didn't
Hmm.
have internet then. Every network is self-contained. We didn't need to talk to our neighbors as we do on the internet. But now, your neighbors could be somebody from Japan on the internet. That's what I
Right.
mean. There are no physical barriers anymore, no
Yeah.
physical boundaries. So, the world is one large global village, and that is where cybersecurity will come in to help you at least safeguard what you can. But the honest thing, as we say in cybersecurity, you will get hacked one day. That's not to scare you, but that's just to help you do the best you can, put the right perimeters or fences around your digital assets, and you're hoping for the best. So,
I love that. What do you in your day to day, right? Like what are you getting to face and deal with? Are you the one that's getting to find these people? It's so exciting to hear the behind the scenes of how this works because it seems very cryptic. Like we have no idea who to call, what to do. It seems like the kind of thing that honestly, even if you call it the police, right? Like your local police are probably getting increasingly more prepared about this stuff, but they're still not all cybersecurity experts, right? Like all this crime that is kind of it's a new category of crime. So, anyways, how does your day to day look in terms of I think like going after these people, finding these people? What does it typically look like?
Okay. I don't go after these people, but I'll tell you how I contribute my own quota to make sure that we're safe. First of all, you need to know that cybersecurity is a very wide field. There are different sectors, different areas where you can specialize in. There are actually people who try to find, you know, uh, people that hack into other people's network. I wanted to use it that way, but I don't know if that's the best way. They try to see if there's something going on. And there are people that try to protect, they constantly scan. Is anyone listening to us? Because now we're talking of a digital world. It's virtual. It's not real. Like that, oh yeah, you've put some gate men in front of your house, or you have some barriers that are deterrent to people. It's not exactly like that, but we try to mimic that in this digital world. My own day to day, what I do, the area that I focus on is to ensure that the application, the software we use, does not contain holes. Because when you go, so let me give you a scenario. When you go to your bank, when you do your banking online, you put in
Hmm.
your password and all that, you look at your account, maybe you move money and all that. My day-to-day role is to make sure that whatever it is that is powering that transaction that you're doing, before it was launched into production, it's the kind of thing that I do is to make sure that that application is secure. And it doesn't mean I'll catch everything because nobody's a superpower, but I look at it, is it following best practices? Is it well developed? Are they closing gaps very well? And then I can say, this is good enough, put it in production. And it doesn't even stop at that. You still need to continuously watch, maintain, and monitor it, and watch for the evolving threat landscape. That's the word we use. Because I was talking of AI, at the beginning of our conversation. So it could be that, things are changing, new technologies are coming up. Just because the application was working well yesterday, it may not work well tomorrow because of all these threats. So you're supposed to look at it and continue to make sure that things are okay. Before you cut in, let me give you an analogy. It's like you want to build a house, the architect will plan it, the builder will build it, following all the codes and stuffs like that. And then they
Hmm.
build the house and the house is okay. But then they need to maintain it. They need to come and find out, is there any gap? Is something leaking? Continuously. And then people will come, the city will come and inspect it. So such is the kind of thing that we do in the virtual world.
I love that. So, how do you see the future of like the combination of AI and cybersecurity? You mentioned earlier how, for the people who are the offenders or the threat, they are using it to kind of disguise themselves a little bit better, a little classier, right? But what do you think like what does the future look like in your world as an operator? Because in every industry we're thinking about all this, right? Like how is it going to mix with what I do day to day? What are people in the cybersecurity industry thinking about as they are hearing all of this stuff about AI in terms of using it to defend themselves or using it to actively go
Okay.
after people?
Thank you. There's a saying that AI is a double-edged sword in cybersecurity, actually. It's a two-edged sword. It has both faces. We can use it to protect the system, and you can also use it to harm the system. We're just hoping that it will be used positively. So what I want to give you, there's a notion about AI. AI has always been around. It's called artificial intelligence. But now the scale at which we're using it is way powerful than it was before. If you remember in the days, I don't know if you remember, you can call help desk and some robotic voices will be answering you. That was in those days, and people will say they want to talk to real humans. And we've always had that. In a way, that's artificial intelligence, right? But now things have scaled up. The world is much bigger. Our computing power is now very big. It's been, scalable. We do things in the space. Look at Netflix. You no longer go to your Blockbuster to rent videos. You go online and you watch Netflix. So that's the
Right.
cloud, that's computing power, and that's what has helped AI to blow up to the level that we're seeing right now. In our world of cybersecurity, it's also helping us because if you look at the enormous data that we're spinning up now, you drive, you use GPS, somebody is recording all of that on maybe by Apple or something like that, and humans cannot just start looking through or pouring through those things. Maybe you're using it for investigative, somebody is missing and we're trying to see where did the person travel and all that. A human eye may not be able to catch it. So you use something like AI to sift through the data, in
Mm,
seconds to find it. So that's the way we've used AI. We're also using it to detect, threats. For example, I made an example of Netflix, and you have various people logging in from around the world. If you want to look at the log, maybe somebody committed, no, don't let me use something negative. Maybe somebody sent a threat out or something and they saw it, and we want to look at the log. The human eyes may not be able to quickly find that, but we will employ something like AI to sift through those logs and quickly pinpoint it. So that's a positive use of it. So in our world, we're really excited for AI, for the scalability of AI. I'm excited because we can do a lot of things. The hospitals, for medical purposes, is really doing a lot of things. But at the same time, we should not lose sight that the bad actors are also going to use it to scale up their nefarious activities. So it's a double-edged sword.
yeah. I mean, on that note, you talked about the cloud a little bit, right?
Yes.
How that's a great place to kind of begin in terms of how we are using things day to day. I'm sure in some way or form we all use the cloud, whether it's our phone uploading photos or texts, our notes, something is in a cloud somewhere, right? So is that something that is, how does security work with something like that? Is that accessible? How easy is that for, bad actors to get access to?
Yes. So you're touching in the realm of what we call the cloud security. Yes, we have to secure the cloud. In fact, a lot of solutions are leaving what we call the premises. What I was telling you that in the past, you just be self-contained. The bank may just have its own servers. They're not talking to other bank. They're not transferring money to another country and all that. But now, because they are doing things on a magnanimous scale, so they're using the cloud, right? But if we use the cloud, we must also secure its perimeters. So there's certain controls, there are things that we do, there are a lot of frameworks to help us secure the cloud, whether it's the people accessing it, whether the people that are administering it, or even the servers or the machines that you're spinning up in the cloud. We have ways of protecting them, of hardening them up to make sure that the bad actors don't get into it.
I like that. How about some of these recent big massive data breaches that have happened? I mean, I guess one popular one is the whole CrowdStrike, right? When that went down. What is that an example of a software company that is powering up other businesses and their transactions? And obviously, like many people, including me, wasn't aware of CrowdStrike until this happened, right? And all of a sudden you find, oh, they're in charge of powering up so many things. So yeah, tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so CrowdStrike, which is the latest one that happened, and a lot of airlines and all that, they went down, and I think some of the airlines are still trying to pay the cost because the customers are suing them. Yes, so that is what you're seeing with the power of the cloud. Although the one for CrowdStrike is not necessarily a breach, the last one that happened, however, is a security issue. Because what happened is that they release patches, right, to be deployed on other people's servers, and it didn't go well. So that's to tell you that I don't want to say eventually something is going to happen. Instead, the way to tackle things that we say, because now we've scaled things up in the cloud, is also to have a preparedness. If this kind of a thing happens, we just have to be prepared. As our world goes digital, we're relying more, we're doing things. You look at the CrowdStrike case, a lot of systems just went down and there were no alternatives, no plan B of what to do. Flights could not go and things like that. That is how our world is now. So
Yeah.
what does that tell us? We should learn from it, that we should be prepared. We should take a preparedness test. What's your plan B? What's your recovery? If this happen, what are you going to do? We tend to lose sight of all these things when technology is working well. It's like you having your phone and forgetting to back up, and you're relying on your phone so much that if you're without it in 1 hour, it's like the world. I can't imagine what will happen if I don't have my phone on me. I have a lot of things on it. You do your banking, you make
Yeah.
payments with it, you put all your things on it. So that's the example that we've seen. We have to always be cautious, to have a preparedness exit or something that we can do. So that's the kind of thing. So I wouldn't say CrowdStrike, although people take it different ways. It wasn't a hack, but it's still a security issue because we do have a domain that's called incident preparedness, right?
Hmm.
To prepare for incidents and be aware of things that can happen. And it looks like somebody missed something somewhere. And look at the scale with which it hit the global world. So now, let's say your organization did not tell you that there was a hack, but somehow your information gets out there, and then you'll be wondering, the trust will even be worse. And I think
Yeah.
you're better off if your provider gets hacked and they tell you, so you're sort of conscious, you're aware, you know what to look out for, against them not telling you, and you feel that you're safe, only to realize somewhere that somebody had used your ID to get a loan from a bank and they're not paying back. So I'm just putting those two conditions there. They get
Yes.
hacked, they let you know, so you're cautious, you're aware. When you see things, you're on your toes and kind of as against they did not tell you and you're not aware. And just one day statement came in and says that you're owing the bank, $50,000.
So, you know
So
what's crazy? Speaking of that specific situation, I literally
yes,
just this weekend, one of our friends told us about how, like, they started getting all of these new debit cards and, pieces of mail that was like with their name, with their account, and like as if they had actually opened up these several different bank accounts, like tons of them, right? And to the point where like you have to go call each one and say, hey, this wasn't me, I didn't, whatever. And they're like, what do you mean how is that possible? Because there's so much info needed sometimes to get,
to get
set
all
up a bank
those.
account. So with situations like that where somebody can falsely pretend to be
Yeah.
you in very like things, situations like you didn't imagine that may happen to you, right? Because this is not just happening to somebody who's very rich or very famous or whatever. Like I know everyday people that this is happening to as well. So how do you, I guess, one, prevent that? Is there any prevention as a consumer, or is it more so a reaction measure that you just
You
have to kind
you
of wait?
take Yes. So that's what I was saying that, the government. So technically, so when I was saying that people need to report maybe breaches, there's certain provisions. I think you're hearing about cybersecurity insurance now. I'm not an expert on that topic, but I
Yeah.
just want to go there. One of the things that we do, as a risk assessor, for example, we look at the data that the application is touching. We look at the data. So, for example, let's say I'm working on an application that touches social insurance number, that touches, health card number. I'm using Canada as an example. For such an application, I'm going to classify the data as it's very sensitive. And one of the things we do is if there were to be a breach, what would be the cost for us to pay the individuals that their data will be breached because they need to start monitoring the credit bureaus. Those are the kind of things. So that's why there's a legislation. That's where there are compliance, things to do. Because the moment they tell you, and that's why they need to disclose, the moment they tell you that, oh, we got breached today, they should report to you. Immediately they make provision for you to monitor your credit, for similar things that you said, so that nothing is happening. And then you look at the other things. That is why it's so important to do that. Now, your question was, what will an everyday person do? What will you do as an everyday person? Never leave your mails unopened, right? These are not the days. I mean, some of them may not come to your residence or to your house, but occasionally, please go in there, check your credit card. Maybe there's some spurious charges coming in that you do not know. Even I myself recently, I went to Chicago and I got Uber charges on my card and we drove down, right? And I was wondering where that is coming from. These people are so terrible. When they steal your data, they also have the opportunity to put the wrong narratives there. I don't know how I can translate that. You look
Yeah.
at your statement and it's telling you you went to McDonald's and whatever. I've had one before that told me that I was in an hotel in Florida. In the last 2 years, I haven't even been to Florida. And I called the hotel and they had no such record. So they have put a wrong, so you see how crafty these people can be. So,
Wow.
yeah, so they have put a wrong statement, a real hotel, and they put it as the narratives. $300, you stayed at Doubletree, for this day, and they put the phone number for Doubletree. Yes, it's Doubletree, but they don't have record of you ever staying there. So we need to be aware. We need to be aware. We need to keep looking. Look, I mean, I'm not saying every day, but just occasionally, right? Especially
Yeah.
some of us, like I hate mails, I hate all those things. I'd rather get everything virtually, but please take a look at that and let your service provider know because they have insurance and they have things to protect you. And if there's any breach, they owe you the fact to let you know that your data has been compromised. It's not because,
hmm
and everybody will get compromised anyway. So, yeah.
So I guess what's going to happen is that the recovery will become quicker, right? So before it, probably a few years ago, you may have sounded crazy telling the bank, no, no, it's not me, or
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
wasn't in Florida, right? But
Yeah.
now it's a little more believable.
Quick,
Hey,
quick.
this happens,
Yes. That's
right?
correct. That's the better way to put it. Yeah. Recovery will be faster. Yeah.
And you mentioned
Yeah.
cybersecurity insurance. So is
Yes.
that going to be something where, because I've also seen that as well, does that include these incidents where if somebody got hacked, do you have a team, I guess, or somebody to reach out to? And what do they like? Do they guarantee solving some of these things? What's it
Well,
look like?
so when you say solving, what do you mean? So most things, solving means, are you able to recover? Are you
hmm
able to get some money back? In the case of the bank, yeah, maybe they can stop or recover. But when somebody steals your identity, right, and you don't know how far that has traveled, right, um, can you recover that? So we have to be realistic on, what is possible. But
Yeah.
what is most important is the lessons learned. The lessons we learn, it helps us, it helps to keep us on our toes. And that's why people also need to record it. Company A will learn from what company B, has gone through. And,
Mm,
we still need to do more in this cybersecurity, but it's just that, technology is just evolving every minute and we're trying to keep up. We're not ahead of it. We're not ahead of it because the same way we're innovating ideas, the malicious hackers are also trying to innovate their ideas and their
right.
crime activities. I even learned, before you go, I learned that now organized crime is like a corporate world. They have help desk. I don't know if you've heard that. Like some organizations, when they encrypt their data and they cannot recover, they give you a help desk. And I learned, I've never gone through, but you call and it will be like a corporate help desk. Yes, how can I help you? And then, I found
Wow.
that so fun.
Right.
That's really funny.
That's so crazy. I was gonna ask you because it reminded me of like Ransom. right? So, for
ransomware.
example, I mean, you see
Mm.
this in TV shows, but this happens now. Like someone really with a big following, shared on their Instagram or whatever recently about how they got basically someone basically sent them a picture of their house, right? An image on Google Maps or something like that, and a picture of, like them in their window, or saying, like, threatening them, saying they will reveal their messages and put everything online, and basically kind of like a situation where I think she ended up calling the FBI, and they're involved now, right? But
Hmm.
basically, I'm sure in those types of cases, there is a ransom component involved where it's like, hey, I want X amount of money, and it will go away, right? So, how do you guys deal with that? Do you guys, like, do people pay that? Or is that something that you can find them and get to them before damage happens, like the way a physical threat would be? How exactly does that work when someone is threatening or hacking with a ransom like component in mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question because I don't have the complete answer to it, but I can share, I mean, what I've seen or what I've heard, not seen, what I've heard.
Yeah.
Technically, for us, things would be like, don't pay because you're fueling that habit. That's what I think is the best practice. I'm not even sure if that's documented anywhere. When they want some money to get to do things, and these days they ask for crypto, right? Cryptocurrencies is usually because now they know the money can be traced, so they ask for cryptocurrency, and maybe some individual, a corporate entity shouldn't. But I don't know about individual. If you think that the data is so critical or it's something that you cannot part with, then maybe they pay. But really, as a corporate entity, we say don't pay, or we think, I'm not sure, don't quote me, but I think the best practice is not to pay so that you don't fuel the activity. But now you as an individual, maybe that means so much for you, and the government is just, FBI is just going to come in and they will not solve this problem quickly. So people might think, you know what, let me just pay them and it will go away. Is that a good decision? To be honest, I don't know, but I don't think so. I don't think you should do that,
Yeah.
and you should accept the loss. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. But the other thing I want to say about the story you shared, that is so rampant now with deepfake. I started with the story of you are in a Teams meeting, you're hearing Duronke speaking as I am now. It is my voice, and yet it was not me. Now
Mm-hmm.
that is possible. There's an organization now with $50. You take this recorded message that we're doing now, and then you take it to them, and they will mimic me, my voice, the way I speak, and they can reproduce it with my still pictures. That is
Wow.
going on now. That's AI.
Yeah.
And the origin of that was that when the actors were acting, they were looking for a way, to represent them. And so that was an innovative way of doing it. But see how it's been twisted around now, and it's being, deep fakes. That's what we call it. They're deep fakes, and they are using them to commit crime.
Right. Who is the point of contact for when this happens? Like, who do you call? Because I think that part feels probably the most vulnerable for somebody who has been kind of hit with an incident. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, it this is kind of so new where you're not trained in your brain to go, oh, emergency 911, or is that the place, so what's your
Yeah.
take? Who do you get in touch with?
I think organizations now, if you look at, in Canada, for example, the awareness, we have a Center for Cybersecurity section where they advise maybe small business owners, even for individuals now. I believe the law, the legal point, the point of law, the law contacts like the police, they're having a crime section where you can report things like this. I think you've heard of the romance scam. things like romance scams, things like all that. You will report those things and all that. But I just feel that people are just, it's unfair to say people are impatient, but that's what I want. You know how the law takes, it's not like it will solve the problem like within 2 minutes or 5 minutes or a day, right? They may say, oh, we've been seeing this, and they're looking for a way to gather as much data as possible, or the intel that they're collecting. Maybe people have reported similar things and they just want to be, before taking that away. Certainly in this part of the world, you can always report to the crime section, but that's the way, because it's never happened to me. I've never called anyone, you know.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
for example, you know how you're you're like a cybersecurity expert and are
Hmm.
doing this for companies and corporations, enterprises. Are there cybersecurity people that are for consumers, for individuals, and helping? Because here, I'll give you a situation. This actually happened recent, like
Hmm.
at the beginning of this year. So there was
Yeah.
this conference. Okay, there's a 30-person conference, or whatever, get together, right? And basically, everybody who was in the stories, Instagram stories. So everybody that was in the picture or tagged this account that was running kind of the event or the conference, they got hacked. Their Instagram got hacked, and basically the only solution was to like pay this guy like $10,000 or something crazy to like get it back, or that's what it was made to seem like, right? But basically it became kind of this thing where how is somebody doing that, right? First of all, because that was creepy. It was like everybody who got shared to the story, each of their accounts in some way were hit. And so I'm so curious where, like, even if it's not just at that level, right? Talking about just getting online accounts hacked. I mean, left and right. That's how we got to talking about some of this hacking stuff this weekend with our friends, was like people were talking about how their Facebook was hacked or their Instagram was hacked, and some people got it back, some people didn't. But what is that like? Like your personal social accounts, the process of someone even getting into that, how does that work? And also getting it back, is it possible? What do you do typically to do that?
Yeah. So okay, let's take it from beginning. So the one that I know happens often, so maybe what you're discussing is similar to, I don't know if you've heard of, there's the app called WhatsApp, and where
Hmm.
people have different groups, school reunions and all that. And occasionally that gets hacked. At least my family's WhatsApp group got hacked recently.
And it's
But
supposed to be
usually
encrypted.
it is supposed to be encrypted, but there's always the weakest, link. We
Yeah.
humans are the weakest link. So what
Right.
happens is maybe somebody takes over your account, and then you end up sharing your OTP, your code. So that's how that happens, really. And they keep warning you. I don't know, maybe they'll change the phone, and somebody will call you and say, "Oh, you got a number, send me those 6 digits or whatever." So that's why they keep saying, set up your multi-factor authentication, something that you have, so that for that, we call it out of band. That's the way I'll call it. So for example, let's say somebody comes to you and say, Duronke says to give me money. Because you've dealt with Duronke, you might know, but Duronke is not going to ask me for money. But some
Yeah.
people will be like, let me just give her. But you should look for another way to communicate with Duronke, just to be sure she's who she said she is. So most of these accounts, they will ask you when you're setting it up, make sure you create a second factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, something other than your password, so that if they detect some activities, that are unusual, they can send, an authentication, send you an email. But most people, most of us, even yours truly, sometimes are like, oh my God, I don't want to, and then the hacking will happen. So that's one of these. So our security hygiene is very important. Awareness, security hygiene. If they say set up a second authentication, send it out, set it up. sometimes your password, some people use the same password for everything.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, we're all guilty. So
Right. It's so funny because that one is, you're right. It's like a big threat, right? Because
it is.
some people, I believe even like the presidents of countries, somebody guessed like, oh, he just had his first name in the year that he was elected or whatever, right? It was like that was the login to the Twitter account. And it's just crazy to think about how people just don't expect it, and so they don't think like
And it
they think that
happened.
they think like the same way they do about data, right? Like, oh, what do I have to hide, what do I have to lose, like there's really nothing, right? But it's until you can't get into your
Yeah.
Instagram, or you can't actually communicate
Really?
in Facebook, where you're like, oh man, how do I solve this?
Oh,
So what is the
yeah.
solve? Is it like with your WhatsApp thing, were you able to get it back? What happened?
So with the WhatsApp group was not through me, it was through one of us, my cousin, right? He changed his phone number or whatever, or somebody got his phone. And usually they send you this, they ask you to set up a second factor. Maybe he didn't, such that somebody just assumed his identity, infiltrated our group, and started
Wow.
asking for money, right? And because we discovered he was the one. But because this my cousin was an admin, he locked up. So this bad actor locked up the group because
Whoa,
he was an
wow.
admin. He removed everybody else and
Yeah.
he became the only admin. It was really
So you guys lost
it,
it.
we lost it. I don't know. We lost it. Yes, we lost all we had posted in there or something like that. We never
Yeah.
got it back or something. It was almost going to get to the point of begging him, please do this or something like that. I can't remember what happened. But we
Right.
lost all the postings we've done. They lost it, and there's a new one being created. I don't know how the issue was resolved, but he got a new phone, and everybody was telling me, make sure you set up your multi-factor, set up something, that they can get back to. Do an out of band contact. So that's what we say. Make sure there's like, in fact, when something happened, I told you of the one of AI now, where they assume there's so many stories. If we go into it, we won't finish. But I remember calling my kid that if you ever see me speaking with you, me talking with you on the phone or whatever, this is the ask me for that password. You
Yeah.
understand? I
Right.
said that's my out of band password. So I faced each one of them and I said, when you say it's your mommy talking, ask her what is the secret word. Then you will know whether it's me or it's AI.
That's genius. I feel like we should all have that, right? We should all have that, because that's actually something that I heard recently that people were doing a lot, where they're making calls. So it's not even the visual, right? But if you got a call from one of your kids, hey, I need help, blah, 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 right? You'd be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And even if it, whatever, it would make you think twice, or not even think, and just go, cooperate with whatever's being asked. So that's a great way to kind of get past, I guess, the
That
identity,
okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. So that's
I
your
love
own
that.
something. I don't know
That's
if it's
cool.
so, but I told them and they tell me, "Oh, mommy, you're going crazy."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, so there's two questions off of that I had for you, right? The first
okay,
one,
sure.
the first
Right.
one is on your phone. So I think the
Okay.
scariest is when it's not just one of these accounts like Instagram, or your bank. Even it is scary, but like your bank is prepared to help you. They're prepared in these
Mm-hmm.
situations. I think where it's scary is thinking about people getting inside of your phone, like your device, right? Like the iPhone, being able to
Mm-hmm.
hack your passcode, or being able to whatever, like be inside of that. Like something like a WhatsApp is an app, but it is kind
Mm-hmm.
of also it's a core function of your phone. You're texting people, you're not just on a big social platform. So how do you view the security aspect on a phone level? So is that becoming more common, where people are able to hack iPhones and get into them? How is that
Well,
even
I didn't
possible?
say, yeah, what I've seen that now I'm not even more current, but I remember when I was working, I mean, I've worked with authentication engineers. I don't want to be too technical here.
Hmm.
So, you have the core memory, what do we call it? The memory model, you know, where when you create this, and where I'm going with this is with your fingerprints, for example. I remember when I got my iPhone, my younger kid, they went ahead of me and they recorded their fingerprint to open my phone. So not just with the passcode, it was with their phone. But then I
Mm,
didn't think of it. I did not think of it much until one of my work, my consult, actually was a full-time work. And we were testing out this application. I was the security advisor to an authentication, to the authentic, to the authentication team, customer identity, right? The
mhm,
authentication engineers. So, whenever I just try to, in our threat modeling, we try to think of various scenarios, and one of it is that in the model, if you put in your memory, so if you didn't install the app or again, or if you install the app, you should be able to authenticate with the fingerprints there. And my head just like, but it's my children's fingerprints that are on my phone, and I think that could be compromised. So in essence, what I was trying to tell them is that if people are going to download this app again, you need to ask them to scan, you know, don't take that because I was processing that. For example, my own phone, it's either you use the ID, the
yep.
PIN,
Face
or you
ID.
use your yes, the ID,
Oh,
it,
yeah.
whatever
Number.
digits you have,
Yep.
or you use your biometrics. Sorry, I was that flew away. And
Yeah.
biometrics could be your eyeballs or your fingerprints. At a certain time, in the IT, we weren't using the eye because they said the retina, it has your history, it can keep the kind of diseases, and we thought that was invasion of privacy. So we kind of restricted to the fingerprints, right? So I said, no, we're not going to use fingerprints, or either when someone is downloading this app, you need to recapture, let them recapture their fingerprints. Don't assume the one they have on the memory model is they belong to them, because that was the situation on my phone. That was the way I was doing the threat modeling with it. Because I work with application teams in my day to day life. That's what I do. I don't
Hmm.
write codes anymore, but I will sit down and will start doing threat modeling. What could be the possible scenario? So what I'm trying to say is that, so the application, we have to always think deep. When you write codes, when you deliver apps, that things can happen. So it may not be people hacking your phone, it can be some carelessness. And one thing that baffled me, something happened to me 2 times now. I went to change my phone, right? And they told me they didn't capture it again, they just copy everything over. I wasn't happy with that. I knew that that's wrong because it means somebody could steal my phone, quickly go out and just make a duplicate of it. I
Mm.
expected a lot of the applications to take the unique device number. Every device has a unique number from the manufacturer, not just there, but the unique device. So when I change my phone, I have this iPhone before and I'm buying another one, and then they were able to copy it over. A well written app that takes recognition of that device number should not work. So, for example, my banking application, they've copied it over, and naturally, I'm able to go in, and I still continue to use it. That's not right. That
Mm.
shouldn't work. It should tell me something has changed, and you need to download or reinstall this application. So that's the thing we have these days. There are a lot of bad apps out there. There was
Right.
even one that I caught before the organization. There's something they call dual security. I changed the phone. A dual security that actually authenticates you did not ask me to reinstall. And I was going to explain to the CISO that this is wrong. It should ask me to reinstall because it should take the unique ID of this device as part of the digital fingerprint that it's using to recognize that you are you. You shouldn't just rely on the password or whatever you put in there. You should also tie it to this device. The moment the device changes, it should ask you to reinstall and re-authenticate. So those are areas. I mean, how many can you correct? You can only correct the one that you're working with or whatever. So we have all those kind of things out there, and that's what we're saying when you say, "Oh, the phone was hacked," or because a lot of these devices are not really tightened down the way they should be. That's my own opinion.
Hmm.
That's as an application security person.
Yeah, I've also heard like how an entry point is older emails and apps that have just they don't make updates often. Like let's say you got the Burger King app or something and it's like it operates funky. It's not that great. And, Burger King, let's say, is not big in 10 years or something, right? All of a
Mm.
sudden your data is still tied with that app and you gave it, and if they're not keeping up with the security aspect of it, that's a possible entry point. But I've also heard like old emails that you just don't use anymore, you may have set up 20 years ago, and
As an
that's
idea somewhere.
right. Like, yeah,
Yes.
for example, so what are some common entry points that you can prevent? Because I think that, like, I guess your Wi-Fi is a big one, right? Like your Wi-Fi is
Okay.
probably the is like, tell me
Biggest
what you
one.
think, because that's like everything is connected to your Wi-Fi. So to me, it just seems like that would be important because that's the home for everything else.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, all that you said, I mean, there's so many things we could be doing to make sure that I call it security hygiene. So with the Wi-Fi example, for example, when you get new Wi-Fi, when they install it in your house and all that, I always tell people never set the default password that the organization gives you. They have all this generic, and then they just put it at the back of the phone, and then most people that's what they're using, and they don't go to tell people that you can change it. And then for people to even change it might not be straightforward. You have to call them and they say put in this, and people don't want to be bothered with that. So
Hmm.
what I tell people, as soon as the day they're installing, you can tell them you'd like to change your whatever. And it stays static actually. That's another thing. Meanwhile, some people go as far as, segmenting the network. If you're a guru or you like this kind of a thing, some people actually go, they segment their network. When you go to their house, their home, when you visit them as visitors, they have the one they give to you that you can use, the network that visitors use while they do all those things. But I know most people don't do that. Even me, that I'm supposed to be an IT person, things like that
Yeah.
are not, I don't want to sit and start dealing with layer two
Right.
or networking stuffs and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
However, I am very conscious that you need to create good password, which I take care of. Because you see your neighbors, and things are now the beginning of our conversation, we're talking of all these IoTs, your refrigerators now, your fridge, your television, they're points of entry into your Wi-Fi now. A lot of things are your alarm system and things like that. They're all connected. We're getting more and more and more connected. Your cooker now, your Samsung refrigerator, so we need to, it's not scary, but that's the world we are living in. And so you need to be conscious of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you told me a little bit about I think that pacemaker. Was it the
And they
pacemaker
had
that one
your
time?
your heart or your
Yeah. So was that through Wi-Fi? How did they get in?
no, well, it's not through Wi-Fi, but I mean, it's not the true Wi-Fi. It's probably the hospital or whatever. I can't remember the story, but it was when I was doing my master's project. Even when I read it, I was so scared, and they held the person to ransom, the pacemaker because it's connected to the Wi-Fi or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but the fact remains that it was an IoT device which is communicating, and for it to communicate, it has to be connected to some form of internet or
Right.
data and whatever. And so they were able to hack into it. And, it was like either your heart or it's not funny, but it was
Yeah.
scary.
So
I'm
what
like, oh my
happened?
God.
In that
It-
case, do you know
ah,
what happened?
what happened? I think the person paid the money or something like that. It was a ransom. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. So for
Right.
that kind of a thing, do you wait until you tell the FBI or you tell someone? They say they're going to disconnect it. And we are beginning to see that people are beginning to say that with all these all these cars, the what do we call them? Self-driven cars and
I was going to
or
ask you about that. So, because that
Yeah.
was in a movie, that was in a movie recently, right? Where it's like, oh, all of these Teslas got hacked, right? And they're all
Yeah.
driving and crashing into
Cre-
each other and basically creating kind of this backup. And I think that was like the first scene where we all thought for a second, like, oh my gosh, like I guess that could technically happen. Why couldn't that happen? Right? If there's malfunctions that happen with the car in different ways, other electronic issues, what is preventing it from somebody overtaking the whole thing? So, what's your opinion on that? Is that something you
I
see
mean, I know it's
nowadays?
possible. Now I know that everything that is digital has a way to be taken advantage of because it was a human, right, that created it, that put those things there. And so you have people, the malicious, people with bad intentions, to circumvent it or use it for game for monetary advantage or anything. So those are really possible, all those virtual cars, smart cities, electric grids. I think that happens sometimes.
That did,
There was
yeah.
a yeah, so all those things in the past, all this critical infrastructure were just sitting there. But even when you leave them, you don't patch things up or run the latest upgrade, they also still happen. So,
Right.
whichever way you go, we're still connected. The more connected we are, the likelihood that there will be a breach. That's just the short story, the
Right.
summary of it all. So,
So it sounds like the thing is like you do like you need the best way to be prepared for a breach is obviously covering some of these bases with like your passwords and making sure you have notifications that happen when there are breaches and things like that.
just yeah,
But
yeah.
outside of that, it seems like the only thing is knowing who to contact, right? You need to know who to call for what thing when it happens. And that, I mean, honestly, that sounds like the best, that the only solution as of now, unless like if you have a cybersecurity insurance or something. I don't know, maybe they take it a step further and help you investigate the problem. Is that kind of the purpose of it, or the
Yeah,
idea?
not only, and you're right, what you're saying is actually a national issue. I'm working on a paper, and they were saying that cybersecurity is not just, is beyond. So, first of all, we're treating it like technical issue only. It's not only a technical issue. We also need to take certain physical actions, but whether the world is trying to catch up. So, for example, we're here and you got hacked by somebody from Japan or Chinese, and then people start to talk of who owns the space, what is the law, and how is this going to happen. And there was a case that happened a long time ago. I don't know if you knew. Um, it was a real story. Somebody was in the space, the spouse. Do you know? Do you remember the story? So the spouse was in the space and the other partner was on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the person in the space went into their joint account when they had separated and they wanted to go to court. I have to find the story and maybe we'll discuss it someday. And
Yeah.
they took each other to court or something like that. And it was like, which laws will be applicable? You know,
Oh, right, because of being in space and
space.
international airspace. Yeah.
It, no, it's
That's
not funny, but
crazy.
that's the same thing we're having that you're asking, who am I going to call? Who am I going to call? Right? If I have this issue, yes, maybe I'll probably call my local police. Maybe they can help me douse it. But what authority do they have? Is it covering their jurisdiction? We realized that I got hacked with somebody from North Korea. How are we going to deal with that? I'm not saying
Yeah.
we should start thinking that because we can't deal with it, then we shouldn't think about it. We need to do our preparedness. The government needs to come in. The government needs to, various countries, they need to collaborate. But we can start from the little communities. In this town, who do we call? In this state, who do we call? This
100%.
county, what do we do? And then it becomes a bigger framework. But it's a major challenge right now because the world is borderless. We don't know who to call. So many flaws. So when you end up with bad software, why like I was telling you, right? You download. Is Apple going to be responsible when you copied my phone? I took my phone and then somebody quickly swiped all of the data and put it on another device, and they're able to now go into my banking application, and my fingerprints were still working or something like that. because they've copied it or something, or even not the fingerprint, but whatever it was. So who is responsible, for all that? So it's a
100%.
challenge. It's a big challenge. I'm doing a paper on it. I've not finished, but what do we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
Cybersecurity is a global issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it almost seems like the because right now, right, we I think Independence Blue Cross, big health insurance company in the
Yes.
United States, just had
Mm-hmm.
a breach, right? Then not just that, but even government offices and agencies have had breaches, right? Like I think for Social Security, that had to be a government agency in order for them to steal all of everybody's Social Security numbers. So
Secretly.
part of that is when that happens, it seems to be that we all just get a notification that, hey, it happened. Hey, you might notice some activity that is abnormal, but there isn't any further information you get beyond that. Like, are they finding who did it? How are they preventing things from happening again? I'm curious how the strengthening of these systems is happening. I'm sure it's happening, honestly, if we think about it from a military standpoint, right? Especially if you have digital stuff like drones and planes and things like that. I'm sure they have hefty cybersecurity resources to make sure they're protected, right?
Budget.
Even more than maybe us. But then you've got the corporate level, right? Where,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I mean, it's kind of crazy that all of our health information is out there or could be out there. So there's no answer yet for that. Like nobody's beyond the reading the article and knowing that that happened or getting a notification. There's
Yeah.
no further step where you
Yeah,
can't.
what's the next step? What do we do? Do we go somewhere? Are you going to publish it? I guess they can deal with it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But that's wrong coming from me. It's supposed cybersecurity. But before then, what are you going to do? What do you do? Your hygiene. How
yeah,
are you going to keep your house in order? They tell you
right.
email awareness, the phishing, any email, and we see so many of them. It comes as calls. I think you get those calls. People
Yeah,
call you, you have some crypto thing or whatever. I just shut down the phone. I'm not interested. I
yeah.
don't do cryptos.
Because it seems like I'll give you an example. So my wife and I, like right after we got married, we went for a mini moon at the
Okay.
MGM, right? MGM is kind of
Okay.
like in New
Studios.
Jersey. Yeah, and it was like a
Okay.
new hotel in that area where we went
Okay.
for like a few days. After we came home, there was an article out about how like a day later, right, there was a security breach for MGM in Vegas, in where we were, all
Oh,
over the
okay.
world, right? To the point where like all the games, like the lottery games and or gambling games or whatever, were all shut down. Like you couldn't play.
Anything.
Like people's bookings and reservations and all this stuff was kind of messed up, right? So this big casino, for example, has gotten
Mm-hmm.
hacked, right? Not just in one location, multiple areas. They had to hire like tons and tons of consulting firms, I'm sure, to come in and help with that, or cybersecurity firms, I mean, right? Because not everybody has a cybersecurity analyst on hand, I believe,
Yeah.
unless you are in finance or something where it's integral to your business and you have to
Business and
protect
all
it,
that.
right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, yeah. So how does that work? Like with people who have consulting firms that are smaller cybersecurity firms, they are just really good hackers, but the good guys. Am I getting that right? Right. And then they've just kind of gotten together to help solve this issue because it seems like they're needed. Like there was almost a shortage of people like when they were trying to deal with this issue because it went on for a while, like more longer than you would think. You would think, oh, okay, they solved it in a day, 2 days. No, it was like a week, maybe even longer than a week, right? So what's the role of these like consulting firms or security firms that develop? um, are they able to tackle problems in a different way? It seems like it's valuable to arm yourself with cybersecurity knowledge in some way, right? So tell me about that. Like with a hack and a breach that I just mentioned. Okay,
Okay.
MGM's like, oh, I need to go find everybody I possibly can, every consultant, every analyst, every person to work on
Uh,
this.
okay. I will share the example because I happen to be part of a cleanup. in a similar breach. We
Uh-huh.
had a breach sometimes here, all the health records. I know how the health records are in Canada. The government technically is responsible. So there was this organization there a couple of years back. They're kind of like the largest lab. So they got breached. So when they got breached, it means that somehow as a Canadian, you are part of it. I think it was about 20 million records then or 45. No, we're not up to 45, but they're about, you know. So you can be sure that you're part of it. What I wanted to say is that the organization that would come in, like, Ernest Young and all those, practices and all that, this is not to run them down. I don't think the exact thing they're doing is to find the culprits. What is most important is what went wrong? How can we make sure this does not happen again? Because I remember that was my role when I was, part of that team. I got, was a consulting gig for 6 months to come help as part of that team. And our role was to see what were not in place in terms of cybersecurity practices
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that it's instituted so that we will not get this kind of breach again. Perhaps they could get some offensive team to see if they can get the footprints of people that did whatever. But the thing is, the water is already spilled. Your records, your health records, are already in the dark web, right?
Mm-hmm.
They cannot scavenge it, even if they catch those people, because typically it goes to the dark web and people are saying, there was compensation recently. I think it took about 6, 7 years or five, you know, but then the damage is there. So every time you're on alert, we got the notification that our data has been breached, almost everybody, my husband got, I got, and we just keep watching out. When a letter comes, you are suspicious of it,
Yeah.
but there was never anybody coming around to say, "Oh, we caught the guys that did it." And what are you going to do with those guys? Are you going to kill them? They've done it, and
I
yeah,
was
but
gonna ask that. Like, how often do people catch the people who are the bad actors? Like, especially in if it's in a foreign country, right? It's in Japan or North Korea or somewhere totally like, who's gonna go find them? And is that worth anybody's time to actually do? But
to
also,
find.
it creates this culture environment where, okay, everybody can do that, and they know they're not going to get in trouble. They know it's a way to commit crime that is, you can't be catched. Like, I'm so curious if that is a technology that's being worked on, or
I
maybe
mean,
people are specialists in that, right? In going after, uh like, I'm sure
the
it's
bad
probably,
actors.
yeah, like, I'm sure they have to be high offenders, just like in anything, like, oh, they're constantly
That's
hacking.
we're making it like physical. I mean, sometimes some people come out to claim that. What did I notice recently? I think somebody was able to breach NASA. I
Oh,
was
yeah,
reading on
yeah,
some social
yeah,
media, but he told them, so that's a good one, right? That I'm able to
right,
do. To be honest, I want to be realistic. I know maybe it's not. I think we just do what we can. So the way
yeah,
I look at it is this. Let's look at it this way. I mean, if people are still good at catching or know what's going on, it's using some technologies to do certain things. Maybe you hear of people that lost their crypto keys and things like that. I want to think of it in a similar manner that, you cannot recover or whatever. And some people will come out and they will lay claim that, yes, we did this, they're on their own. And then occasionally we hear reports that, yeah, we caught this or this group was responsible for this hack. But I think the report of being able to get them is way fewer than the breaches that happen. So I don't
yeah,
think they catch them. I don't
yeah.
I don't think they catch them. However, but what's most important is to make sure. So we say in cybersecurity, everybody is going to get hacked at some point. It's just to know when, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And there are a lot of technologies we put in. We have what we call honeypots,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where they put into the networks, to sort of attract hackers. And maybe we can study what they do, their patterns and those, and we use it to improve our systems. We have
Oh,
things like that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
is it enough? Because it's the people developing these technologies. Some of them are probably the ones doing all this hacking, insiders, threats, and stuffs like that. Just like
Right.
other crimes, right? When people go to
Yep.
a house and they do stuff, then you know that it's that. So I don't
It
have answers. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I know this is such a complicated topic, and it's not something. It's like saying, how do we solve crime altogether, right? It's like, I mean, I don't know if
Completely.
that'll happen, but I do think it increasingly over the past few years, I have began
Yes.
to get a sense of like, you know how in the U.S. here, everyone's real big on guns, right? Everybody loves, being able to
Yeah.
protect themselves and have access to that right and do it. But I almost feels like that's just one way of being attacked now, right? It's almost like there are other weapons that are way easier for people to control or hurt somebody if they want to. Don't get me wrong. If somebody wants to shoot you or kill you, that's different and they can do that. But I'm saying that if somebody wants to like hack you through your fridge or your Wi-Fi, right? Like they can get access to your information and
Sure.
almost
Hmm.
like torture you that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that a
Exactly.
gun it's something that a gun doesn't fully protect you. You still feel vulnerable. You're like, wait, what?
Vulnerable.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
fully armed. I'm in a secure property, but everything that I touch digitally or any data I have is compromised. So there's a new form of it's not new, right? But it is increasingly new to, I think, the consumer, which is it's a new
Yeah.
form of security you have to be kind of aware of. What would you say that, like, for the general person who wants to learn more about
Hmm.
cybersecurity, some basic
Yes.
things, not like your level, but like some basic things to understand, how IP addresses work, how like certain things work that are affecting them,
Hmm.
what resources would you suggest to help arm yourself almost with the digital version of your guns and your security system essentially?
Yeah. Okay. It depends. I don't know. So if I want to start recommending, I'll have the tendency to jump into how to become a cybersecurity professional, but that's not what we're looking for here. First of all, we're talking of the ordinary citizens,
Yeah.
regular people, you and I, in our day to day, the seniors, right? The young teenagers, all those kind of things, they're becoming victims now.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the torture is way, way worse than even people taking a physical gun and shooting. That's what I think. Recently, there's a case, two guys, they forced a young person to send nude pictures and he committed suicide. They're all, if you look at it, all these are enabled and powered by the digital power that we have these days.
Mm-hmm.
You are able to communicate with someone without seeing the person. You hide behind the screen and you're
Yep.
committing all these kind of terrible things. So look at that day. That's a bad torture because the person, not knowing that this is being done by boys, thought he was talking to a girl, sending nude pictures, exchanging nude picture, but they're boys. And then they source extorting money from him.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
what do we do? What do we do, right? The basic things for normal people, we shouldn't overcomplicate it. Emails, all these texts, they come in now like every minute. Fake call, well, not fake calls, but you have these phone calls, people telling you. It's no longer like the days of the Nigerian prince, if you know what I mean. At some
Mm-hmm.
point, that was the way that people were being compromised or being duped. Now you see a regular call, you get this email. So your email, like they tell people the basic hygiene, I call it the basic security hygiene. Any email, look at where it's coming from. Sometimes they look at it very well. Um, Find a way if it's coming from family, like we discussed, find a way to communicate with that person outside of the regular thing. And then they talk of multi-factor. I don't think that's too complicated, but basically, it's, apart from your password, have another way of authenticating to any digital thing that you use, whether it's your bank, whether it's your social media account, which has become our everyday life. Because right now you find out that I mean, the cleanest thing would have been to tell people not to use anything digital. But you know, our
Right.
world can no longer be like that, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
world is no longer like that anymore. I went to Chicago and I wanted to order cake and sprinkles, right? The store. You can only order through an ATM, in that location. You
Uh,
can't go to the counter and pay money. You have to order through ATM. So I also paid with my phone, right? So
yeah.
our world has gone digital. It has gone digital. We just have to follow those simple rules that they tell us, and that's what I'll tell everyday people. And read news, be part of the news because some of these things you learn from it. The
Yeah. Yeah.
information. So
Very
that's
well. I
yeah.
love talking shop about this stuff. So thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom around it. Do you? I think you do put out information around this stuff, right? Like, do you have a blog or some place where you're kind of creating things for the consumer side? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, well, I do. There's a website, the security bench is our main
Security
focus.
Bench,
I, yeah, thesecuritybench.com. There's a
thesecuritybench.com.
new, yes. I also have another avenue specifically to talk to ladies. Although this is a generic thing to empower ladies, to inspire them, this is also part of what we'll be discussing. It's still only existing as a YouTube channel at the moment. It's called She Insights. She Insights Hub. So there we do all these videos, little things. Of course, security, cybersecurity is a major thing because of things like romance scam and all
Mm-hmm.
that, dating app. So women need to be aware, they need to be wary of all these kind of things. Although they're physical, but people are using their digital empowerment to do all this kind of art. So that's another place. And of course, my LinkedIn profile is there. I do write a lot, generally critical infrastructure, you protect it, cloud security, and all that. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Duronke Owoleso, that's the name. So I thank you very much. This is fun, and I think we should do more of it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Yes,
appreciate it. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
I'm excited to have you on in the future. And I'm excited for you to hopefully do your own podcast at some point, because I would love to hear more stories and more use cases and scenarios. Because coming from somebody like yourself, we normally don't get to hear from that, right? You guys are kind of behind the computer, working for the corporation on the app. It's like normal use cases we can extract through everyday conversations like this. And so I appreciate you sharing a lot of that. And I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon too. Thank you. I enjoyed this. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.